Thank you, Karen. It's great to be back here in Los Angeles, one of the many cities I call home, and have very fond memories of lots of wonderful events right here in this room. So I'm not here to give a speech today. I'm here to start a crusade. And I want you all on board, please. Let me read you a quote from one of my favorite philosophers. "But I can't listen to music often. It affects the nerves. One wants to say pleasant stupidities and stroke on the head the people who, living in this dirty hell, can create such beauty. And today it is impossible to stroke anyone on the head. They bite off your hand. And it's necessary to beat heads, beat them ruthlessly, although we, ideally, are against any sort of violence against people. The task is diabolically difficult." Vladimir Lenin, as recounted by Maxim Gorky in Days with Lenin. And that, ladies and gentlemen, as you've heard all afternoon, is the essence of the evil that we face. And we must call it by its name. It is evil and it is satanic. So the crusade I'm here to enlist you in today has been adumbrated by all the speakers, for whom, by the way, I thank for the prolonged infomercial about my books, Devil's Pleasure Palace, which is about the Frankfurt School and the rise of political correctness and critical theory, and the newest book, The Fiery Angel, which is how we fight back against these people. How do we fight back against these people? We have the weapons. We just don't have the will. We have abandoned everything that got us to this point in Western civilization. We have now let the left not only attack the Constitution, as you've heard, not only attack the American way of life, they now attack Western civilization completely. They reject it. It's racist, it's white nationalist, it's prejudicial. It has to be destroyed. And that is the essence of critical theory. It's a point I make in The Devil's Pleasure Palace, which is that critical theory, which sounds like an academic discipline, is actually a form of juvenile resentment. Imagine the left as children whose parents have just been killed in a plane crash, but they haven't been told about it yet, and they're puzzled by the fact that there's no parental authority around, so they've busted into the liquor cabinet, drained it dry, and wrecked Dad's Maserati, and then wonder why there's no one left to take care of them. This is what they're doing to our civilization, this is what they're doing to our culture, and they have to be stopped. You've heard a lot about Hegel, Marcuse, the other members of the Frankfurt School, all of whom have brought us to this point, and they've done it through stealth and subtlety, through the mechanism of disguising their real intentions, and they've been very, very effective in it, haven't they? Because we're all sitting here now like the early Christians in Rome, wondering whether the centurions and the tribunes are going to come crashing through the room and drag us all off. But we have the weapons to fight back. It's called everything good from the magnificent dialectic of Western civilization from the time of the Greeks to the present. And in my particular interpretation of this, it has to do with the arts. I'm not terribly interested at the age of 69, almost 70, in the transient political issues of our day. We've been arguing about them since I first went to college in 1967. Nothing has changed in the quality of those arguments or in the arguments themselves. So I propose this in The Devil's Pleasure Palace. We like to think that, as Aristotle teaches us in his doctrine of mimesis, that art imitates life, that our all too human creations of drama, poetry, theater, literature are reflections of the human condition, scenes glimpsed through the glass darkly of imperfect understanding. But what if the opposite is true? That far from being mere imitations of deeper truths, art, and by that I mean all the arts, is born deep in the unconscious and shaped according to historical principles of structure and expression, and is God's way of leading humanity to a deeper understanding of its own essential nature and potential and its own fate. What if that's the case? What if art is not so much imitation or reflection as it is revelation and pathway? I found in my studies from the time I was a freshman at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, that the intertwining of the arts with the culture and with the larger politics is really the most important thing that I can pass on both to my students and to people like you to whom I am addressing. That the truth is found in the canon of Western civilization. That, as I say in the new book, Fiery Angel, there's more political wisdom in Homer than the entire John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. What I found after the surprise success of Devil's Pleasure Palace, I'm going to channel Mark Stein for a moment, my good friend Mark Stein, and say, and if you haven't read that book, it's available right outside there for all you Rush listeners. What I have found now, though, that the principles I articulated in that book are now themselves under attack. Just today in the New York Times, God, I love the New York Times. There is a story, a cultural Marxist critical theory story, that medieval studies has been weaponized by the alt-right as part of a white nationalist, white supremacy plot. The fact that the Times runs this almost entirely uncritical story of Marxist cultural determinism tells you all you need to know about how far and how fast the ball has been moved in the culture. David Horowitz, obviously, was there, present at the creation, playing for the other team at that point. He understands these people better than anybody. I came into the game a little bit later, came from a complete opposite background. My father is a 93-year-old United States Marine Corps veteran who fought at the Incheon Landing, the Battle of Seoul, and the Chosin Reservoir, where he was awarded a Bronze Star for heroism in the face of overwhelming odds. And yet, both of us have come to this same point where we realize what is going on. That's where we need you. Since the publication of The Devil's Pleasure Palace in 2015, the necessity of restoring Western culture to its proper place in our understanding of ourselves has only become more urgent. Remember, the Alinsky rules, several were quoted, including rule number 4, which is make the enemy live up to his own book of rules. They are designed to cut you off from your culture. They are designed to make you stupid. They are designed to make you guilty. They are designed to make you worthless. And that's what they want you to think. The prolonged assault on our common culture, European American for want of a broader, more inclusive description, has intensified, propelled by a burning hatred for a civilization that extends from the ancient Greeks to modern Americans and has been responsible for most of the world's artistic, technological, and moral progress for 3 millennia. Indeed, even to rise to its defense at this imperiled moment has become controversial, a measure of just how deep the animosity in civilization's enemies runs. Whence comes this hatred for the West, for you and me and all of us? The simple but sorry answer is from ourselves, or at least from a significant segment of the population that has fallen under the spell of what I have termed the satanic or cultural Marxist left. Oh my God, did I catch hell from the left for calling them satanic. Well, they are, though, absolutely. Since at least the mid-19th century, Marxists have waged a battle for the soul of the West, for civilizations have souls, spirits, umbras, penumbras, zeitgeists, not merely through politics, but through artistic and political philosophy. This is the key to what I'm trying to communicate today, is that politics is just the surface. The well springs of the culture are where this battle's being fought, and you're not fighting it because they've cut you off from those well springs. They've made you feel guilty about those well springs. They don't want you to think in terms of 3,500 years of artistic and cultural civilization. Sprung from the high brows of Rousseau and Hegel, these demon Athenas were made flesh in the forms of Karl Marx and later the Marxist collective known as the Frankfurt School, whose animus towards the West I treated at some length in Devil. In that book, I undertook to show how the heroic narrative lies at the heart of Western civilization, antedating even organized religion as a means of explaining ourselves to ourselves and forming the foundation of the modern nation state. The eternal battle between good and evil, symbolized by and given both literary form in the figures of God and Satan, involves all aspects of the human experience, including our laws, mores, sexual relationships, and our interactions with one another, and the body politic itself. It is a battle that rages still. As tools of analysis, I chose in that particular book 2 poems that you have to know. I once had a college student come up to me. She said, "Professor Walsh, you make us feel so stupid." I said, "You're not stupid, you're ignorant." Stupid, I can't fix. Ignorant, I can't fix. And then she said, in tears, "They never told us we had to know this stuff." I said, "Sue your high school, because they have cheated you out of the foundation of a college education." I chose Paradise Lost and Goethe's Faust. And I discussed a great many other works, novels, poetry, plays, movies, operas. I have a kind of syncretic mind that connects all these things in my tiny little brain. And made the thesis that to understand where we are today politically, we must understand where we have come from artistically. To those who queried whether in engaging men like Herbert Marcuse, Theodor Adorno, these are the Frankfurt School guys, and their colleagues, I was seriously arguing that the writings and teachings of a handful of Central European academics with Dr. Strangelove accents had had a significant effect on both Europe and America. My answer is, ja, wohl, stimmt, recht. Du hast's gesagt, and let's go to French. La plus belle des ruses du diable est de vous persuader qu'il n'existe pas. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist. That's from Baudelaire. We all think of it as from Kevin Spacey, right? But it's from Baudelaire. It shows you how these things are unified, largely through their creation of critical theory, which posited that everything about Western society must be questioned and, when possible, destroyed. These devils have continued to plague us. They may be largely unknown to the public at large, but their influence has been incorporated into just about every progressive program, notion, and social justice act of war against Western civilization and the United States of America. How do we fight them back then? I'm announcing today the establishment of a movement to restore Western civilization to our colleges and universities. At least we can start there, and I'm sorry that my good friend Pete Peterson is not here, but this will be done in part with Pepperdine University, It will be done in part with the Institute of World Politics in Washington, D.C., where I'm a visiting scholar of cultural history, and hopefully other institutions such as Hillsdale College, which I've got a relationship with, and I'll be teaching there this fall. What I want to do is not just give you, the students, a lecture on cultural history, but rather to show you how all of these things, in each one of these works, all of these men, and yes, I'm sorry, they're mostly men, have dealt with the very same problems we're dealing with today. Why have we cut ourselves off from this? You want to know what to do? Go read Homer. Go read the Aeneid. You don't want to, I know. You'd rather watch The Avengers, part 65. All 72 hours of it. But I suggest that you get yourself straight with the culture first to even understand where the Avengers comes from. By connecting the dots, so to speak, of our cultural past, we remember what it is we have to fight for. I was at home in Ireland a couple of weeks ago when Notre Dame burned, and I found myself enraged. That's, first of all, I spent many, many happy hours in that church, both at Mass and both as a tourist. It's a place I took my children. And to see it go up in flames and to see the glee on the part of these demons who celebrate the desecration and destruction of our cultural artifacts and, more importantly, our religious beliefs was truly enraging. And yet, they will continue. For them, this was a very, very good thing indeed. You've heard a little bit about political correctness and why it's so evil. Let's ask John Milton. He knew a few things. I used to teach this famous essay that Milton wrote, the Areopagitica, from 1644 in college, and my students never heard of it, of course, but some of them had actually heard of John Milton, and I was excited. But the last year that I taught, I was 0 for the student body when I brought up John Milton. But John Milton had this to say: "Give me the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely according to conscience, above all liberties." Liberals used to be in favor of liberty. Isn't that kind of part of liberal? Now they are against it. Today, all of our freedoms, whether constitutional or traditional, are under attack, often in the guise of real freedom. Freedom from hurt feelings, freedom from a hostile environment. Don't get me started on hostile. You want to see a hostile environment? Come to one of my classes someday. You'll see one. Or a perceived slight due entirely to the soi-disant, I snuck in another French word there, the soi-disant victims' poor vocabulary. We are dealing with idiots who do not speak the English language. Their lack of historical knowledge, unfamiliarity with cultural references, or simple stupidity. These attacks generally come from within the Western cultural perimeter, from people who should know better, and you know who they are, but who have chosen to align themselves with the West's external enemies, primarily recrudescent Islam, so as to better function as morale-sapping fifth columnists passing as friends. Wielding the words bigotry and racism as talismans, they attempt to destroy Western culture by leveraging the American Civil Rights Movement into an all-purpose battering ram against the walls of Athens, Jerusalem, Rome, Paris, London, and New York City. All is not lost, and I was very pleased to hear some of the earlier speakers discuss this. We can win this fight. We have the tools to win it. They must make the darkness eternal. My friend Bill Whittle, who's here, will be up soon, has made that point very eloquently in many a speech, that Satan is darkness, God is light, to put it in literary, not necessarily religious terms. Single candle destroys the darkness. One crummy candle destroys the darkness of infinity. That's us. We have the match. Let's light it. Fire comes and the news is good. It races through the streets, but is it true? Who knows? Or just another lie from heaven? Those words were written in 458 BC. It is the opening of Aeschylus's Agamemnon. The fire symbolizes the dawn, symbolizes the victory in Troy, or is it just another lie from heaven? I like to believe that it's not, and therefore let me leave you with one of my most favorite poems. It's Thyrsis. Who? Yeah, Thyrsis, right, Matthew Arnold. Who? Yeah, Matthew Arnold. We'll get to that later in the course. Despair I will not. It's called The Wandering Scholar. No, that's Thyrsis and The Wandering Scholar, two poems combined. Despair I will not, while I yet descry that lonely tree against the western sky. Let in thy voice a whisper often come to chase fatigue and fear. Why faintest thou? I wandered till I died. Roam on. The light we sought is shining still. There's my timer. One final quote from Rimbaud. Let's leave with the French again. Je suis la clé de cette parade sauvage. I alone hold the key to this savage parade. That's not me, that's you. Let's get them. Thank you very much.